Hey everybody, and welcome to Mobus Creative Negotiating's 6th webinar in our 7-part webinar series on negotiation. I'm Jim Holmes, I'm the Vice President at Mobus, and I'm going to be your host for today. There seemed to have been a little bit of a discrepancy between our website saying we started at 11 when actually we were starting at 11:10, so if you've been in the waiting room for a bit, our apologies. Next webinar will start at 11:10 as well. Alright, so if you're joining us for the first time, let me just take a moment to introduce you to our organization. We are a business-to-business training company. We specialize in the subject of negotiating. We offer customized instructor-led training in the form of 1- and 2-day seminars, but we also have half-day seminar and speech options available as well. So if you'd like to discuss any of those options with us, you can contact us through our website at www.mobusinc.com or call us on the phone at 888-577-7416. Today's webinar is going to run just over 20 minutes, and we're going to have a little time for questions at the end. And just a couple of points before we start. During the webinar, I'm going to be using a slide and video presentation, which you can see on the left-hand side of your screen there. But we'll also be asking you to participate in some polls. When I launch a poll, you're going to have the opportunity to take part on your computer or tablet by clicking the options provided, and then I'll share the results with all of you. You can also ask questions if you have them during the webinar by typing them in the chat window under the video feed on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And at the end of the webinar, I'll go through those questions and I'll answer as many of them as I can, time permitting. All right, let's get started. Our subject today is thinking like a negotiator. So what does that mean? How can it benefit you with your negotiating challenges? When do you think like a negotiator and when do you not? So we'll be addressing those questions over the next 20 minutes. Let's begin with this. The problem that most people confront in negotiation is that negotiating runs counter to some of our basic instincts as human beings. Getting beyond those instincts requires a shift in your perspective. So as a way to begin exploring how you do that, let me refer back to something we talked about in our last webinar. In it, we talked about how negotiating with people inside your organization can often be harder than negotiating with people from outside your organization. And that has a lot to do with your objectives and expectations of success as an employee. So to kick things off, let's start our first poll. And the question is this: what are the qualities that make you a good member of your organization? You can choose more than one answer. I'm going to launch the poll now, and we'd love to have as many of you participate as possible. Your options are working well with others, transparency and direct communication, truthfulness, efficiency and speed at getting things done, or all of the above. All right, we're getting a pretty good feedback right now. And once we get a few more people, at least 80%, that's great. Give you like 10 seconds. We'll close the voting. And we're going to end the voting now. All right, so those are the results. We had about 35% said working well with others. 76% of you said all of the above. So no matter what you answered, any and all of those attributes can be useful if you're an employee. Because as an employee, we're trying to benefit our organization as a whole, or we should be. And if you are, it's not a bad plan. It might help you keep your job. But beyond the workplace, this is a focus that's part and parcel of our natural human instinct, which harkens back to our earliest ancestors on the savannah in Africa, where working as a group was helping us to survive. Better yet, it helped us advance as a species. You see, we're programmed to get along. One of our primal fears is being shunned or ostracized from the group. In fact, this was the highest form of punishment by early American settlers from Europe. They would banish criminals and bad actors from the safety of their compound into the wild, where they had to hunt and gather and find shelter alone. All right, but in the business world, we of course have a more sophisticated understanding of how to interact with others. But we are still operating from that perspective. It is part of our mental model that we've created for ourselves over time, this human instinct we have to get along. One of our contributing advisors is a man named Bill Anton, and he's written a couple of books, The Business of Success and Ascend. And in them, he deals with this gap between the ideas that we have and the actions that we take. And he talks a lot about mental models and how they affect the way people act in business and in life. Well, this idea applies to negotiations as well. So how can you adjust your mental model to think like a negotiator and thereby achieve better outcomes in your negotiations? Well, let me mention another source of modern research that's influenced our program to help answer that question. It comes from a man named Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And in it he talks about the two mental systems of the human mind that human beings operate under. By the way, Kahneman's a psychologist at Princeton University, and he's never even taken a course in economics. But his research into the two systems of the human mind earned him the Nobel Prize for Economics in 2002. So the two systems of the mind are the automatic system and the reflective system. When we're infants, blinking, even when we're adults, blinking is an automatic response if somebody blows in your face. But an infant will stare at the mobile over its crib for a long time, reflecting on why it spins around while the rest of the room remains still. Another example of this is driving a car. If you've never seen a car or watched anyone drive one, you'd need lots of reflective thinking before doing any driving. In fact, even if you had seen people operate a car, you would have to reflect a bit on how to make the thing move, much less steer it down a busy street. But after years of driving, you do it automatically. You don't have to think or reflect about it. So let's take another poll now. And this question asks, which of the following actions uses your automatic system? Once again, you can choose more than one answer in this situation. I'll launch the poll now. And we'll try and get as many of you participating. So your options are parenting a teenager, dodging a thrown object, stopping for French fries when you see a McDonald's sign, replying to a text message, snatching your toddler from a busy street. And give you a little more time here. All right, a couple more seconds, and we will end the voting now. And here are the results. So, dodging a thrown object got about 80%, snatching your toddler from a busy street about 70%. Well, while there is some subjectivity in how people answer this poll, I think we can all agree that parenting a teenager is an activity that requires the use of your reflective system. In fact, I am a parent myself, and I learned that when I responded automatically to my teenage daughters, I would end up involved in dramatic, protracted discussions, and then I would often get parented by my wife as a result. So, how should negotiators think? When should they be reflective? How does their automatic system help or hurt them in negotiation? And how can you train your automatic system to work for you? How can you switch to a different mental model? So to cover that, let's start by breaking down a negotiation in general. In a perfect world, negotiations consist of planning, preparation, and the negotiation itself, which we'll call execution. Now you should build in as much time as you can to plan and prepare before you negotiate. I know that this is not always possible, but for the purposes of discussion, let's assume that you have some time to do that. Because without planning, you rely too heavily on your automatic system. And there's a danger in that situation that your natural human instincts could lead you astray. Planning helps you to avoid falling into the trap of just trying to get along. Because as I said earlier, we're hardwired to do this. And while getting along can be useful in long-term business relationships, it can be very costly if it leads to benefits going to the other side at your expense. So your first step in planning is to realize that you have to adopt a negotiating mindset, a mental model that says I need to be deliberate, calm, use all the time available, and control what information I give out. So that's your first step in your mental preparation. The second step in preparation is to arm yourself with specific questions, choices, and alternatives to propose. Because a good negotiator plans in advance a number of things that can be traded for any and all of the concessions he or she may need to give to reach an agreement. But how do you know what you need to reach an agreement? Well, that requires yourself asking yourself one simple question. What is the pressure on the other side? Because whether you're a buyer or a seller, the flexibility of the other party can only be found through exploring what they need. So you need to plan, research, consider, and reflect on that question. We've been training people in negotiations at Mobus for over 30 years, and we've found that the pressure on people to get or sell a product will often blind them to the reality of the pressures on the other side. Their automatic system has them so focused on relieving their own pressure that they ignore the power that they have in the form of the other side's needs. And this is where this idea of mental models comes in. You have to change your mental model from I have to get this deal or secure this contract to why do they have to get this deal or sign this contract? So even if you don't have but a few minutes to plan, you want to use all that time to focus on the other side's pressures rather than your own. All right, plans are great, but as the adage goes, the best laid plans of mice and men fade in the noonday sun. So to think like a negotiator, you have to prepare by practicing your plan. And now you can do this with others in your own organization or even at home with members of your family. One of the key parts of our training at Mobus is creating and orchestrating real-world negotiating cases. We have people actively negotiate them with others in our seminars. It's really amazing the things that people can learn about themselves as negotiators and how effective the principles we teach can be when they're put into practice. And one of the most important things they learn is the value of testing out the pressures on the other side. Practicing before a negotiation is a way to form an effective mental model, which helps you to think like a negotiator. So even if you can't find people to negotiate with, play devil's advocate with yourself to actively prepare for your negotiations and find your own negotiating mindset. Now, we know many people in business are sent in to negotiate without any planning time at all, and that's why we suggest that you use every opportunity in your personal life to negotiate with your cable company, service providers at your home, at big box retailers like Costco and Best Buy, even with doctors and dentists. Yeah, I was once offered a lava crown on a tooth rather than a standard ceramic one. It was amazing the response I got when I said, well, can I have a cost breakdown? This while I'm lying prone in a chair with a suction tube on my lip. I mean, the dentist's eyes got wide, he shuffles out of the room, and a frightened young woman from the front desk sheepishly comes in with a price list. Now, I did eventually get the lava crown because of the long-term benefits of the lava crowns. It's a better crown. But the point that I'm making is that most people wouldn't negotiate in that situation at all. But I've gotten in the habit of it because that's my mental model. So use the opportunities that you have in your own life to form your own mental model as a negotiator. It'll train your automatic system to help you in your business negotiations. All right. Well, let's say you've done a lot of planning and preparation and you're ready to go in and defend your interests, getting the best possible deal you can. How do you continue to think like a negotiator when you're in the execution phase of a negotiation? I mean, what if the other person looks you hard in the eye and rejects everything you say? Or they won't listen to anything you have to say? All right, so as an example, we're going to watch a little video now. Say I'm the seller for an office furniture company, and I'm fighting to get the contract on 10,000 filing cabinets at $1,000 a month over 10 months, and I'm selling to a medium-sized document storage facility. I've done my planning, I've prepared, I'm going to meet with the head of purchasing. I've met him a couple of times before. Let's see how I do. I'm going to actually turn off the camera and microphone while you're watching the video to avoid feedback, but there's nothing wrong with your feed, so stand by. Hi, Nate.
Don't sit down. Your bid is ridiculous. Once again, you've wasted my time. I will pay this and not a penny more. Meet this, or I'll take you off my vendor list. Wrong answer.
Okay, well, obviously that was a bit extreme. Some of you may have met people like this before, but hopefully not that often. So let's take a poll here about how you should react in a situation like this. So confronted with a buyer like this, and I'll launch the poll now, you should concede to his request instantly, tell him right back his offer is ridiculous, hand him a flyer for an anger management class, call a mobster to smash out his car windows, or none of the above. All right. Give you a couple seconds more to vote. And we will end the voting now and share the results. It looks like most of you said none of the above, and that of course is the proper answer here. Even though you do not have to subject yourself to emotional battery, and on some cases I guess it might be appropriate to tell a buyer to find a therapist to deal with his anger issues. But let's just use this as an outlandish example. Let's see if we can unpack what was happening in that video. Because this is business, this is not personal. But the buyer is trying to make it personal. Is he mad at me? Is he mad at his wife? His co-workers? Or is he just putting me on the defensive? This is something that a soccer announcer would call being on your back foot. Because the more afraid and weak I feel, the more he feels empowered. And when dealing with a really difficult negotiator across the table, sometimes I just want to get it over and done with as soon as possible. Or I want to lash out in return. Both not very good ideas. This is our fight or flight response, part of our automatic system, and it works against our best mental model of ourselves as a negotiator. You see, what really happens is you're thinking fight, flight, or accommodate in a negotiation, or concede. To think like a negotiator, you have to know that you're worthy to be there so that you can stay calm and handle any situation. I mean, you need to know, hey, I deserve a seat at the table. One of my favorite actors, John Cusack, was once asked how he prepared for his film auditions. And he said, well, I spend my time in the waiting room convincing myself why the movie can't be made with anyone but me. That's a very effective mental model. This can't be done without me. Taking that position doesn't eliminate the possibility of a trading range where concessions will be made. But it does validate your position, and it gets you thinking like a negotiator. Keeps you on your front foot. And when you think about it, what are sales presentations? They're basically designed to help you formulate an effective mental model as a salesperson. Budgets and quarterly spending targets do the same to help buyers form an effective mental model. To really think like a negotiator, you need to formulate your own mental model that says your position is worthy. One of the things that we remind salespeople faced with a buyer who says the competition is offering the same thing as you cheaper is to ask themselves this question. Well, then why am I here? I mean, if the competition is so great, why aren't they using them? There's usually a reason that you're invited to the party. And when you think that way and you accept that, then you're on your way to developing a good mental model and thinking like a negotiator. Alright, so let's go back to the video scenario here. I'm going to go back in with a slightly different mental model, and let's see if that's a little more effective. Hi, Nate.
Don't sit down. Your bid is ridiculous. Once again, you've wasted my time. I will pay this and not a penny more. Meet this, or I'll take you off my vendor list.
How's the family, Nate?
None of your business. Now, can you give me the price I want or not?
I might be able to do that, but I got a question first.
What?
How does the city get away with charging $2 to park on the street around here?
I don't know. It's crazy. People are always getting tickets, and the visitor lot is always full.
Yeah, well, it's a really booming area. I'm guessing the rents are rising.
The rents are sky high, and we've got an empty property that's not generating any revenue for us. So, can you give us the price we need or not?
Okay, that was a little better than last time. I stayed on my front foot. Now why? How did I do it? Because I knew that I had the right to be there, and that kept me from withering in the face of his attack. But more importantly, I stayed calm. I didn't overreact. I recognized that he might be using a tactic, and that helped me to diffuse some of his hostility and start using my time to create some negotiating space for myself. Let's go back to the video now and see how we lead towards a more beneficial outcome.
The rents are sky high, and we've got an empty property that's not generating any revenue for us. So, can you give us the price we need or not?
I'm trying to get there, but I know that my price is competitive based on your request for quote. How many bids did you get?
4 in total. Besides you, 3 of your top competitors.
And they met that price based on your RFQ?
Yeah.
No exceptions?
Well, sorta.
Okay, what's that supposed to mean?
What I said.
Look, I'm not going to be able to come off my price if I can't take something back to management.
Well, that's just not my problem, is it?
Look, I can't help you if you don't let me know what the lay of the land is. I might be able to come off my price if I could modify the terms a little.
Okay, I'm listening.
What do the other guys hold back?
All I can tell you is that one wants prepay, and that I cannot do. I get skinned by financing.
Okay, well, that's not a problem for us. How about delivery schedule?
Delivery schedule? The delivery schedule should be easy to meet. Why would a furniture company have any problem with our delivery schedule?
Hold on, I can meet your schedule. In fact, if you can take $5,000 now and $5,000 next month instead of $1,000 a month, I think I can meet that price. Okay, well, now I am back in the game, eh? I'm using my time prudently, and I'm exploring his needs. We have some people that aren't from America, but those of you that are understand that we Americans are a particularly impatient culture. We like to move quickly, and when we are faced with unpleasant situations, we try to get them over and done with. But when you're thinking like a negotiator, you're going to expect a little friction, and you're going to recognize that tactics are just part of the process. So then you move slowly and deliberately, and you use all of the time available to you. Because even if you had a lot of time to plan, you usually don't know everything you need to know about the pressures on the other side. So you want to use the time in the execution phase of your negotiation to find out what else is there that can bolster your position. It's something we call the discovery tactic. But you want to keep in mind, discovery is a process of zeroing in rather than hitting a bullseye. Both personal pressures and organizational pressures can be affecting your negotiation. So asking less pointed questions before cutting to the chase often helps to reveal the hidden pressures on the other side. This is a tactic that we call avoid getting to the point. Because every piece of information that is exchanged in a negotiation can be of value and can uncover information that will be helpful down the road, even if not in the current negotiation you're in. The reason it's effective is because people generally have a hard time with silence. It's unsettling to sit in a room with someone else and not interact. So you want to have some small talk ready to go before you enter the room. Now that said, you have to be very careful about what you say, because revealing pressures on yourself can weaken you. It's like flashing your cards in a poker game. The rule of thumb is anything that you feel is a need or pressure is seen as leverage to the other side. So you want to keep your cards close to your vest. Loose lips sink ships, etc. But I'm going to add a caveat to that, because sometimes the best way to get information is to give a little. Information can be exchanged almost like currency in a negotiation. So if there's something that you can have prepared to share which doesn't reduce your leverage dramatically, it might help you find out something critical to the other side. And another thing, after your negotiation, take some time to analyze how it went, to debrief yourself. You want to maybe even keep a log. Every failure and every success that you have in negotiation is going to help you craft a more confident mental model where you can think like a negotiator. Now, in our little mock negotiation video skits there, it was implied that there was some history between myself and the buyer. Another part of having a good mental model as a negotiator is to always know what negotiating mode you're in. And we've covered this in our previous seminars, but it bears repeating. This is our continuum of negotiating modes. It goes from bargaining, which is basically pushing prices back and forth to reach an agreement, to creative deal making, where you're considering total cost and total value optimization, to relationship building, where you're actually nurturing a relationship where the two of you can work together to create value down the line. In our mock negotiation, it was really just an advanced bargaining negotiation, but took a little creative deal making for me to get the buyer on my wavelength. See, thinking like a negotiator means actively surveying the landscape of your negotiation. And I mean by that the negotiating mode that you're in. The more you do it, the more it's going to become second nature, or part of your automatic system. And that way, you can adjust when you see opportunities. An expert negotiator has a mental model that recognizes there's always a better deal for both parties. But in order to find that better deal, you have to keep an open mind to opportunity. You have to look for ways to match needs and assets and create value in the deal. See, discovery isn't just about finding leverage through uncovering the other side's needs and taking advantage of them. It's also about finding new value. And that's the true creative negotiator's mental model. When you can think like a negotiator and adopt a beneficial mental model for yourself, you're going to be better able to protect your own interests. And you're going to be able to use your creative faculties to find opportunity and new value, making a better deal for yourself and for your organization. All right, well, that includes my coverage of our topic for today, so I'm going to take a look here. If you have any questions now, you can ask them, and I will field them. Type away if you've got any. All right, so this is a question about total cost and what I meant about total value optimization. So one of the things that happened in the video skit that we were doing is I was able to find that the delivery schedule was actually a cost factor for me that actually he really didn't have any cost in taking them earlier. So it was able for me to meet his price. Now down the line, whether there would be total value optimization in the situation like that is up for discussion. But the total cost of ownership goes well beyond the actual transaction that we're negotiating, which was just for 10,000 file cabinets. And his delivery schedule, he seemed to be sort of animated about that. And by using that, I was able to find that the delivery schedule wasn't that important to him. He really needed the file cabinets in order to generate revenue for his company. Total value optimization is slightly different. It requires a more complex look at the actual needs and assets of the two companies. All right. Here's another question, which is, should I never say yes right away? One of the tactics that we talk about is trying to say no one more time. It's basically a time tactic. When you say yes right away, I would say sometimes it's good to say yes. When you do say yes, you usually want to be prepared with your trading option. So you'll say yes if. Yes, I can do that if you're willing to do this. When you say no one more time, you can also use that as a tactic to say, no, I can't do that, but I can do this. This is a way to keep the conversation going, keep information flowing back and forth between the two of you. So what you want to try and do is, I would say the answer to the question, do not say yes right away, because saying yes right away isn't taking advantage of your right to be there and the time you can use, the actual time you have available to you, to explore. So if you say yes, I would say you would always want to try and tie a trading option to that so that you can actually get something for whatever it is that you're conceding. All right. Well, that's all the questions that we have today. Our next webinar is it's on the 14th, correct, Nathan? Yes. September the 14th. So we hope that you'll join us again. I hope this has been useful to all of you. We love having you in our webinars, and check out our website. Give us a call if you would like to. Once again, our website is www.mobusinc.com. Our phone number is 888-577-7416. I am Jim Holmes, and it's been a pleasure to have you with us today. Good luck with your negotiations.